Today, I'm going to show you how to write an invincible character. You know, the one who truly can't be beaten. They always maintain their invincible aura. So grab a cup of coffee and stick around. Let's see what we can learn. Now, when brainstorming for invincible or overpowered characters, one might point to a character like Superman, for example. The way that DC made Superman work was to invent an object or substance that could negate his power. You know, kryptonite. Not the most inventive, but I'll admit it got the job done, and they were one of the first to do this. Another thing that many stories try is threatening our main character's significant other, family, or close friends. If the villain can't touch our hero, they go for what he loves, right? That's an equally valid way to go about things, but I don't want to talk about Superman today, or really superheroes at all. The thing is, all of those characters lose in battle at some point. What I want to examine is how to build an interesting and engaging story around a character that literally never loses a battle. And what better example than the classic samurai novel, Musashi by Eiji Yoshikawa, the story of the greatest swordsman who ever lived, who fought in 61 duels over the course of his life and never lost one. A deeply engaging 1,000-page epic. But you don't have to have read the book or be familiar with the story to understand this piece. I'm going to give you all of the examples you need, and there will be no major spoilers for the book itself. What we're going to look at are the duels themselves and the unique way in which Yoshikawa handles the character of Musashi. So in the beginning of the book, Musashi is nothing of the warrior that he later becomes. He's bold and brash, but knows nothing of how to wield a sword. It actually takes a couple hundred pages into the book for him even to begin to set out on his journey to becoming the greatest swordsman. Only after 3 years of isolation with merely books to keep him company is he released from imprisonment and sets out into the world with a goal of becoming a samurai. So how does he become great? Well, we don't actually see a lot of it. We get a lot of talk about how deeply Musashi thinks of the sword, how he obsesses over it, how it's his one goal in life. He even turns down the girl he cares most for in order to better pursue his union with the sword. But the interesting thing is that we don't actually get to see Musashi practicing these skills at all. Most of the growth we witness is personal. Musashi sees the way of the sword in all things, and we never actually see him practicing exercises or sparring. This actually creates an intriguing aura around the character and his aims, which is actually going to be really important. What I find to be most interesting in the way that Yoshikawa depicts his champion is that most books need to give their main characters struggles and defeats throughout the story in order to humanize them, to keep them engaged and the readers on their toes. It's a major tenet of story to give your characters obstacles that are bigger than them to overcome. But how do you do that when a character can't be defeated? Yoshikawa does all of the things that a good story would. He riddles Musashi's life with quests and personal drama. But what makes Musashi's journey to mastering the sword so engaging is that while he defeats his opponents at every turn, earning the fear and respect of his enemies, Musashi himself struggles to accept his own victories. He constantly seeks something higher. This is illustrated in this quote where Musashi gazes out over the vast mountain. He was awed by his own tininess, saddened by the thought of his insignificance in the vastness of the universe. Since his victory at Spreading Pine, he had secretly dared to think there were few, if any, men as well qualified as he was to be called the greatest swordsman. His own life on Earth was short, limited, the beauty and splendor of Mount Fuji eternal. Annoyed and a little depressed, he asked himself how he could possibly attach any importance to his accomplishments with the sword. There was an inevitability in the way nature rose majestically and sternly above him. It was in the order of things that he was doomed to remain beneath it. He fell on his knees before the mountain, hoping his presumptuousness would be forgiven, and clasped his hands in prayer for his mother's eternal rest and the safety of Otsu and Jotaro. He expressed his thanks to his country and begged to be allowed to become great, even if he could not share in nature's greatness. The way that Yoshikawa sets up Musashi allows him to effortlessly defeat his enemies at every turn, because Musashi's struggle is not physical. It doesn't lie in personal relations. It's higher than that, which allows Musashi to both seem invincible, but also gives him a true struggle. A try-fail cycle of his own, without ever having to give up his grand, legendary aura. The passage goes on to say, but even as he knelt, different thoughts came rushing into his mind. What had made him think man was small? Wasn't nature itself big only when it was reflected in human eyes? Didn't the gods themselves come into existence only when they communicated with the hearts of mortals? Men, living spirits, not dead rock, performed the greatest actions of all. This perfectly encapsulates Musashi's path. We begin to care less about his enemies and duels and see his true struggle. But it's not a struggle that ever makes him seem weak. He never appears any less invincible, never ceases to come across as a character with a divine purpose, a grand and epic goal of transcending and mastering the way. The way that Yoshikawa reinforces this throughout the book is that as Musashi takes on duel after duel with worthy opponents, he consistently beats them all, which, if done poorly, would quickly lead to stagnation for the reader. But Yoshikawa creates character development through Musashi's reaction to these duels. In one of his earlier bouts, Musashi defeats Ganosuke in combat, proving his superiority. But Ganosuke manages to land a strike with his staff to Musashi's skin, one that cost Ganosuke the duel. But Musashi's reaction is not to revel in victory. In fact, he later claims that he actually lost this duel simply because Ganosuke was able to leave a bruise on his abdomen. In this way, Yoshikawa creates inner turmoil in Musashi, but we as readers can't lower our opinion of him. His sole struggle in this chapter is simply that he did not win his duel as cleanly as he would have liked. When contrasted with the casual humanity of readers today, it seems absurd that Musashi would go so hard on himself. But this character trait is a necessary one in order to maintain his invincibility while also spurring onward Musashi's inner conflict. You see, the story would not be so engaging if it did not encapsulate Musashi's own thoughts, if it only told you of his travels and victories. Many stories try to depict overpowered or invincible characters by only showing you from the view of other characters and not really getting inside their head. But Yoshikawa jumps right in. It is Musashi's ultimate goal to become one with the universe that both maintains his transcendent aura as well as provides the reader with an engaging conflict. It's a fine line to walk because in order for Yoshikawa to build this legend, he cannot compromise Musashi's greatness. That's why his methods are so interesting and I think they warrant study. He manages to perform something that few other works can. Sure, DC found a way to make Superman engaging by dangling his loved ones from tall heights, threatening their lives, giving the character moral dilemmas, or even just simply kryptonite. But the thing is, Superman does lose. And while he remains an excellent and timeless character, he doesn't really maintain the legendary status that Musashi does. He almost becomes too human. Readers and viewers often criticize a story with overpowered characters for good reason. But does that mean that we shouldn't write them? Of course not. What we learn from Yoshikawa is that try-fail cycles can still work, even for characters that don't seem to fail at all. You simply have to think outside the box. The emotional state of your character is everything. What Yoshikawa succeeded in doing across a 1,000-page epic was creating an invincible, legendary character that was still somehow interesting enough in their struggles for us to follow them through every page. Now, obviously there are other vividly realized characters and engaging subplots throughout the novel, but that's not the point of this piece. It's Musashi's personal philosophy that is so rich and regal. It allows Yoshikawa to build a framework around him and pull off the impossible task of writing a character that cannot lose. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and leave a like on the video if you did in fact like it. Subscribe to the channel for future content and I will see you guys in the next video.